My mother tapped her glass. It sounded like a bell against the brittle hush of the room. "So, Kat," she said, smiling the way she'd always smiled when she wanted the room to look at Lily, "when's yours?" "I already had mine," I said. That was the first time the truth felt heavy enough to drop the lights. I don't start here because I want sympathy. I start here because that tap, that tiny, innocent-sounding tap held a weight all of us had learned to carry like an invisible heirloom. My mother tapped for attention. Lily posed. Those were the two gentle rituals that ran our house. One created the story, the other posed for the pictures. I was the one who held the frame. As a child, it was easy to bend. I learned choreography early. Laugh when others laughed. Clap louder if no one else was clapping. Make room. It's the thing kids learn when they want the house to stay warm. But rooms keep the same furniture even when the people change. Somewhere between science projects and first jobs and moving 3 hours away, I started to notice the seams. Seattle gave me oxygen. It gave me a small apartment with tall windows, books stacked like small cityscapes, and a life built on things that mattered to me. Water tests, reports, and a man who read me the way no one else had. Ethan noticed the small parts. He noticed my restless index finger when I thought, the way I tucked hair behind my ear when I was nervous, the science jokes I made that only he laughed at the right time. Where my childhood had been invisible, his family learned me into being. So when he proposed one fog-quiet June morning by the water, it felt right. Simple, quiet, meaningful. I wanted the people who knew me to be there. I wanted a tiny chapel, a handful of chairs, vows that smelled like salt air and coffee. I wanted a day that belonged to two people who had built a life unafraid of smallness. Because I'd been small for so long, I decided to make small matter. I designed the invitations myself. I mailed them with signature required because habit had taught me the small, ugly ways family could misplace what wasn't shiny. I triple-checked addresses. I tracked into the little delivery icons turned green, and the word delivered sat like a promise next to each name. The mail scan confirmed, 4 packages signed, 4 confirmations. I breathed. It felt like permission. They didn't show up. At first, I told myself 100 excuses that sounded like hope. People get busy, I said. There'll be a surprise. Technology ate the message. Maybe the mail went to the wrong house. Maybe something, anything had happened. I texted. I called. I watched the little blue dot go by in read receipts and come back to nothing. Weeks passed like cold drafts through the curtains. The silence didn't feel accidental. It felt arranged. It felt like someone had gone through our life and turned down the lights in the rooms where I had lived. It felt like a slow erasure. And then little things unrolled themselves. A missing name in the group chat, a photo where my face had been careful cropped out, a voicemail that turned to static. I started to notice patterns I should have seen years ago. Lily had always been the gate. She sorted the bills, answered the calls, decided whose news made it to the living room. My mother trusted her like a seasoned curator trusts the label maker. She'd been rehearsing my invisibility for decades. Sometimes families are not mean. Been rehearsing my invisibility for decades. Sometimes families are not mean. They are efficient. They prioritize. They curate, and in their curation, some people finish as background pieces. I want to be clear about something. I didn't expect fanfare. I didn't need a parade. I needed acknowledgement. I wanted to be included the way you include a friend in a Sunday plan, the way you remember to ask about the small, boring things. But they were absent like a scheduled blackout, not a mistimed attendance or a missed call. An absence that smelled planned. Ethan helped in the way scientists help, not with assumptions, but with logs and proof. He asked me if I had the tracking receipts. He sat with me at our small kitchen table, the one with mismatched chairs, while I pulled up the shipment scans and the delivery confirmations. Each one said the same thing. Delivered. Signature, L. Last name. There was the little curl in the signature I knew as well as childhood scars. It was Lily's handwriting. Confident, practiced, the same looping flares she used when signing party guest books or RSVPing to events she adored. In no place did the world make sense. In one small corner, it made painful sense. She had intercepted them. I could have done many things. I could have called. I could have confronted. I could have stormed into the house with evidence tucked under an arm like a weapon. I could have let fury blaze and watched the table bend under the heat. I did none of those. Instead, I planned a smaller, sharper move. I kept living, kept laughing at Ethan's bad jokes, kept writing small thank you notes to the friends who had made our day worthwhile. I made lists. I rehearsed lines until my voice felt like my own again. I waited for Thanksgiving. Sorry, I mean Christmas, because holidays are where family rehearses itself, where old scripts are pulled out and everyone slips back into the roles they know. Christmas had always been theater at my parents' house. The tree was not a tree, it was a stage. The mantle was curated, the stockings arranged like props. Lily would pick the sweater she wanted photographed, the angle for the family card. My mother would fuss over the roast and narrate Lily's plans like a weather report. The house smelled like cinnamon and a carefully applied expectation. So I did the thing I'd never done. I walked into that set with proof in my pocket. Not loudly, not with a marching band, quietly, methodically. Because I had stopped wanting to be saved by melodrama. I wanted a line that would hold weight. I wanted to see their faces when the light caught the truth. The living room looked like a magazine spread. Fairy lights winked on the tree. Lily stood near the fireplace, perfectly poised, a dress that caught the light and made her grin like a woman who'd been practiced since childhood. Her husband hovered like an assistant director. My mother moved through the room the way a producer moves through a set, adjusting sleeves, cueing laughter. My father poured the wine with slow, automatic motions. It was all material, perfect, staged, immaculate. No one asked how I had been. No one asked if the wedding in June had been everything I hoped. No one reached across the table to meet the person who had married the man standing outside the house with our life. Instead, the evening rolled like a familiar script. Congratulations to Lily, who would be married in September, in a gown that would swallow headlines. The table chuckled. It practiced the same old courtesy lines. I felt like a ghost wearing a coat. Then, my mother tapped her glass. That little sound held 1,000 rehearsals. Lily's wedding was great, she said, smiling where she always smiled. So, Kat, when's yours? The laugh that followed was brittle. I set my fork down slowly. I had spent months preparing a different aftermath than this, but it turned out the truth didn't need fireworks. It needed clarity. I already had mine, I said. The room did what rooms do. It adjusted. Conversation folded up. Forks paused like shutters closing. My father's hand, which had been carving meat a breath before, hovered mid-slice. Lily stared at her plate still, like someone in rehearsal too long. My mother's smile flickered and tilted like a carefully made prop starting to crack. My father whispered, almost with practiced disbelief, "We never got them." So I reached into my bag. I placed my phone face up on the table. The screen glowed and caught in the crystal, a little cold reflection that felt like a blade. I tapped. The receipts slid into view. 4 delivery confirmations, each stamped with the same signature flourish. Delivered, April 23rd. Signature, L. Last name. Delivered, April 24th. Signature, L. Delivered, April 25th. Signature, L. Delivered, April 26th. Signature, L. Simple, quiet, unambiguous. My mother gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth like a character who had forgotten her line. My father leaned forward like someone reaching for a truth he'd sleepwalked past for years. Ryan, Lily's husband, stiffened, his eyes flicking between the screen and his wife's face like someone suddenly reading subtext in a play he thought was comedy. Lily didn't move. That stillness was a tell. People who practice silence to avoid shame usually prepare their faces for it. She'd been practicing this invisibility longer than I'd been alive. You could feel the air change. Not loud, not dramatic. The kind of change a storm makes before it arrives. The calm that smells like ozone. The moment after I set my phone on the table felt unreal, like the house itself stopped breathing. Christmas lights flickered across their faces, bending color into worry lines none of them had ever shown me before. The room was warm, but the silence had a cold edge to it, like someone had cracked a window in the dead of winter. My mother's breath was the first thing to move. It broke softly, like a thread snapping. My father blinked once, slow. Ryan shifted in his chair, and Lily, she sat perfectly still. Too still. A stillness that told its own story. I didn't say anything yet. Sometimes silence reveals more than any accusation. My mother cleared her throat, the way she did when she needed to reset a scene. I don't understand, she managed, trying to keep her voice steady. There must be some confusion. Confusion. That word had been her shield for years. My father leaned in, squinting at the screen like it was written in a language he didn't know. Who signed these? He asked, though the answer was already staring back at him in neat, looping script. Lily's script. Lily's confident curl at the end of the Y, Lily's small, practiced flourish, the one she used on all her thank you cards, on every school banner she ever signed, on the giant poster from her cheer team that still hung in the hallway like a shrine. It looks like... My father hesitated, then forced the truth forward. It looks like you signed them, Lily. The knife slipped from the illusion. Lily didn't flinch, not at first. She kept her eyes on a point just past the centerpiece, like she could pretend the truth wasn't sitting inches away from her. Then she said it, the line we were all waiting for. I don't remember signing anything. A familiar defense. Smooth, practiced, but predictable. Like a learned dance step she'd used on teachers, on my parents, on everyone who ever tried to hold her accountable. I didn't rush. I didn't raise my voice. I simply rotated the screen so the warm light hit the signature more clearly. Delivered. April 23rd. Signed for. By you. Lily's jaw tightened. So small a movement it wouldn't have been noticeable if I hadn't spent my whole childhood memorizing her tells. She swallowed hard, the motion sticking in her throat, like guilt trying to hide behind denial. Ryan looked at her now. Really looked, like he was seeing his wife through a new lens, not as the perfectly curated woman she presented, but as someone with sharp corners he never noticed. You signed for Kat's invitations? He asked softly. Confusion mixed with something heavier in his tone. Betrayal. Lily snapped, just a crack, but a real one. I said, I don't remember, Ryan. I get the mail all the time. Why does everyone assume I did something wrong? Why, indeed. My mother squeezed her hand. Sweetheart, it's okay. We know you wouldn't. Don't, I said quietly. It wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. It was just final. Everyone froze. My mother blinked at me like I'd spoken in another language. Don't, I repeated, softer still. Please don't say what you always say. Not this time. The truth sat between us like a weight, and I could feel something inside me shifting. Not anger, not even grief, but clarity. The kind that comes after carrying something heavy for too long. I tapped one more time, pulling up the next piece of the puzzle. The email, I said. The room tightened, like the walls themselves leaned inward. I opened the activity log Ethan had taught me to access, a detail I never would have known existed without him. There it was, in simple lines. Weddingannouncement.pdf. Opened, Family Home Network. Device, ID, Lily phone. Deleted. Permanently. Timestamp, April 23rd, 6:14 p.m. My father's face went pale. That was... We were... here, he whispered, voice cracking.
all of us. Yes, all of them. And yet the email, mine, had been swallowed by someone who had always had access to everything. Lily's voice, sharp and defensive, broke the moment. I didn't delete it. I probably just clicked it. Why are we acting like I destroyed something? Because she had. Just not in the way she framed it. You didn't just click it. It was opened, then deleted, permanently, before anyone else saw it. My mother shook her head desperate, eyes shining with panic. This has to be a mistake. Lily would never do something to hurt you. And there it was, the sentence I'd heard my entire life, the refrain, the chorus, the myth. Lily wouldn't. Lily didn't. Lily couldn't. Lily never. I'd grown up inside those four walls of denial. Mom, I said softly, you keep telling everyone what Lily would never do, but you never look at what she actually does. My mother's face froze. My father bowed his head, and Lily finally blinked, not in innocence, but in fear. Ryan pressed both hands to the table, steadying himself. Did you hide your sister's wedding invitations, Lily? Her breath caught. A real, visible stutter. I don't know, she snapped. Why do I have to defend myself for every little thing she accuses me of? Because the evidence sat 2 inches from her. I leaned back slightly. Not away, but with the kind of posture someone takes when they've carried a truth and finally set it on the table for everyone to see. You didn't see 4 packages addressed to you? I asked quietly. 1 every day, for 4 days. I get so much mail, she shot back. Not like this. Not certified. Not with signature required. Not with my name on the return label. Lily swallowed again. My father stared at her like he was noticing something for the first time, something he couldn't ignore. My mother whispered, "Sweetheart, tell the truth." And Lily, for the first time, cracked. I didn't hide anything. I didn't think it mattered. Why does everything always have to be about Kat? She yelled suddenly, with voice breaking into raw, unfiltered frustration. There it was. The real truth. The truth behind the denial, behind the signatures, behind the deleted email. It wasn't about forgetting. It had never been about forgetting. It was about control, attention, spotlight, narrative. My wedding was small, quiet, not meant to compete with hers, but apparently it still did. Lily pushed her chair back so fast it screeched across the hardwood floor. She stood, hands shaking, eyes glistening with anger. You always make me look like the bad guy. You always play the victim. You think everything revolves around you. Victim. That word echoed. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something startlingly simple. She wasn't angry at me. She was angry at what I exposed. The truth she'd spent decades hiding behind smiles and curated perfection. I didn't raise my voice. Not once. I'm not making you the villain, I said gently. You wrote that role yourself. Lily's face twisted. She seemed to shrink inward, then swell outward with emotion she didn't know how to contain. I didn't ruin your wedding, her voice cracked. You ruined my year. There it was. The confession, clear as the signature on the delivery slip. Ryan sank back down into his seat, stunned. My mother covered her mouth with both hands. My father whispered, "Oh, God." And I watched the house I grew up in fall apart. Not because I wanted to, but because it was built on a foundation that finally cracked.
Lily stood trembling at the head of the table, the Christmas tree lights flickering behind her like an audience to her unraveling. Her shoulders rose and fell in uneven breaths, her face blotched with anger she'd never dared let slip in front of my parents before. "You ruined my year," she said again, quieter this time, but packed with the kind of resentment that lives under the tongue for years, waiting for a moment to surface. I sat still, the phone glowing between us like a lantern swinging in a dark place. My father's voice broke the silence, low and desperate. "Lily, what are you talking about?" Lily turned to him, eyes blazing. "You don't get it. You never get it. Kat doesn't need anything. She doesn't even try. She just exists, and somehow everyone feels bad for her." Every word came out sharper than the last, like she'd been waiting her whole life to say them. My mother gasped. Ryan stared at her like she'd just become someone he didn't know. My father leaned back slowly, like the truth was physically pushing him away. And me? I didn't speak. This wasn't the first time someone had rewritten me. It was only the first time they said it out loud. Lily pressed a trembling hand against the back of her chair. "You think I wanted to sabotage her wedding? You think I wanted to be the villain? But what was I supposed to do? Her wedding was 2 months before mine. 2 months! People were already comparing our engagement photos." There it was. The real motive. The real reason. She hadn't destroyed my wedding. She had protected her own spotlight. And then she picks June. June, the same season, right before mine. How was I supposed to have my moment? My moment. The words hit like cold water, not because I disagreed, but because I finally understood something. Lily had lived her entire life starving for attention, and my parents had fed her with every milestone, every award, every moment. So of course she would do anything to keep the plates spinning. My father shook his head slowly. "Lily, your sister's wedding wasn't an attack on you." Lily laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Of course you defend her now. Everyone's suddenly on her side because she has her little evidence." She gestured at the phone like it was poison. I still didn't speak. My silence was louder than her shouting, and she hated that. She turned back to me, eyes red, mascara smudged. "You always play innocent, Kat. You always make it look like I'm the selfish one, but you never want anything. You never fight for anything. You never ask for anything. And somehow that makes everyone feel guilty for not paying attention to you." That line hit harder than any accusation. I didn't ask for anything, because asking never worked, because silence was safer than being ignored. I breathed in slowly, not shaky, not weak, just tired. "I didn't want your spotlight, Lily," I said quietly. "I wanted my family." Her face twisted again, but she didn't interrupt. "I wanted one day, just one day that wasn't measured against yours. One day that didn't need to compete with your dress or your venue or your guest list. One day that wasn't overshadowed by what you wanted." Lily's chin trembled, but she didn't speak. My mother wiped a tear, whispering, "Girls, please." But I shook my head. "No, not this time." I turned to Lily fully, leveling my voice. "You didn't ruin my year, Lily. You ruined my wedding. And you did it because you couldn't stand the idea of me having even a small piece of the attention." Her breath hitched, the harsh, involuntary kind. Ryan blinked rapidly, processing everything. His voice was shaky when he finally spoke. "Lily, is that true?" He asked it so softly, it felt like a fragile thing. Lily pressed her fingers to her temples, pacing in a small circle. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted my wedding to feel special. I didn't want people talking about hers instead of mine. Everything was supposed to be perfect, and then she just got married." I finished. She froze. "Yes," she whispered. The room fell back into that eerie, heavy silence, like someone had placed a glass dome over us all. My father leaned forward, elbows on the table, rubbing his eyes. "I don't understand how we didn't notice." He shook his head. How? How we didn't see anything?" I answered gently.
You never looked. He winced. My mother reached for Lily's hand, but Lily pulled away. Ryan let out a long, slow breath, the kind someone takes when their marriage shifts under their feet. And still, I said nothing more. I'd laid down years of truth. It was enough. But the moment wasn't over, not even close. The final break. My father straightened, looking at Lily again. Not with anger, but with the kind of heartbreak that comes from seeing your child clearly for the first time. Lily, did you hide the invitations? Lily's lips parted. She didn't speak. She didn't deny herself. She didn't defend herself. She just stood there, shoulders slumped, eyes wet, mouth trembling, and for the first time in her life, she looked small. Not delicate, not innocent, not curated, just small. My mother reached for her again, but Lily stepped back.
I didn't want it to be like this, she whispered. I just, I didn't think anyone would care about her wedding. Not really. She never needs anything. She never asks for anything. I thought no one would notice. Everyone noticed. Just too late. My father closed his eyes and exhaled slowly, like the truth was heavier than the room could hold. That was her wedding day, Lily, he said softly. Her only one. Lily's face crumbled. I know, she sobbed. It came out of her in a broken, ragged sob that tore through the room like shattered glass. I know, I'm sorry. I just wanted to be important for once. For once. That hurt more than anything, because Lily had been important every day of her life. She had been cherished, adored, spotlighted. She had been the center of every holiday, every photo, every plan. For once, those two words told me everything about how warped her world had been. I felt something shift in me. Not forgiveness, not anger, but understanding. Understanding of the cost of being the golden child. Understanding of the pressure to be perfect. Understanding of the desperation she had felt when I dared to have a moment that wasn't hers. But I also knew something else. Understanding is not an excuse. Understanding does not erase harm. Understanding does not undo what she did. I remained quiet. Because I didn't need to win. I didn't need her to lose. I didn't need revenge. I needed truth. And I'd finally gotten it. The house falls out of character. My mother finally broke her silence. Her voice was small, smaller than I'd ever heard it. She should have checked, she whispered. I should have asked you. I should have seen you. She looked at me with tears welling in her eyes, not performative tears, but real ones. And yet, I felt nothing. Not because I was cold, but because I had spent a lifetime begging for what she was offering now. It was too late. My father nodded slowly, voice low. We failed you, he said. We failed you both. Lily shook her head violently, fresh tears pouring down. Don't say that. Don't make me the bad sister. I didn't know she'd care. I didn't know she'd actually get married. My mother gasped softly. My father's mouth dropped open. Even Ryan looked sick. My heart clenched, but my voice stayed steady. I didn't think anyone would want me, I said gently. Lily looked at me with shattered horror, and for the first time, she understood what she had really done. Not the invitations, not the email, not the silence. She had erased me, not out of hatred, but out of disbelief that I mattered. And that was the deepest wound of all. My comeback, not with anger, but with truth. I stood slowly, the chair scraping softly against the floor. Everyone watched me like I was the one holding the match, but they didn't realize the fire had started long ago. I had only shown them the smoke. My voice stayed soft, steady, unshaking. I'm not here to punish any of you, I said. I'm here because the truth deserved to exist. Their eyes followed me, confused, breaking, red with tears. I continued. I deserved one day.
Just one. One day where I wasn't compared, overshadowed, or forgotten. Lily sobbed harder. My mother cried quietly. My father looked down at the table like he was staring at a lifetime of choices. And even now, you're all shocked that I got married. Because somewhere along the way, you convinced yourselves I would never be chosen. I took a breath, slow, grounding, but I was. And the room fell silent again. Not guilty silence, not defensive silence, but the kind of silence that happens when truth tears the wallpaper off a room. I picked up my phone, my coat, my bag. My father whispered, "Kat, don't go yet, please." My mother reached out a trembling hand. Lily choked on a sob, but I shook my head gently. I'm not leaving out of anger. I'm leaving because I finally told the truth, and that's all I needed. I stepped toward the door. The air behind me felt thick with grief and regret, but it no longer belonged to me. Before I walked out, I looked back one last time. My wedding wasn't something you missed. It was something you chose not to see. I opened the door. A wave of cold Christmas air rushed in, sharp, clean, honest. It felt like the first real breath I had taken all night. I stepped outside, and as the door closed behind me, I felt free.
The cold air hit me harder than I expected when I stepped outside. It wasn't just the temperature, it was the way it wrapped around me, clean and sharp, like it was slicing the night open and offering me something new. For a moment, I just stood there on the porch, breathing, letting the sting on my cheeks remind me I was alive, awake, and finally outside of a story that was never written for me. Behind me, I heard movement, chairs scraping, muffled crying, my father calling my name. But the door stayed shut. I didn't turn back. Not this time. A few seconds later, the headlights of Ethan's car blinked as he stepped out. He didn't rush, he didn't ask, he didn't even speak. He just walked toward me with a kind of quiet urgency, his breath fogging in white clouds. When he reached me, he placed his hands gently on my arms, rubbing warmth into them like someone trying to coax life back into a frostbitten place. "Hey," he murmured, voice steady, "I'm here." Just 2 words, but they were everything. I didn't realize I was shaking until he pulled me into him, arms wrapped tight, steady, grounding. I collapsed into the warmth, into the smell of his coat, cedar, cold air, and something that felt like home. For a long moment, that was all there was. No shouting, no accusations, no proof or signatures or old wounds reopening. Just Ethan and breath. There's a strange thing that happens when a truth stored inside you for years finally comes out. You expect relief. You expect release. But what you feel first is exhaustion. And standing there in Ethan's arms in the cold December air, I felt the weight of decades sliding off my shoulders all at once. It didn't fall. It melted. Slow. Painful, but real. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. He saw it in my face, the kind of face someone wears when a chapter ends in a way they didn't plan, but needed. "Let's go home," he whispered. And for the first time, that word, home, didn't pull me backward toward the house behind me. It pulled me forward. The drive home, the quiet afterstorm. The car heater hummed softly as we drove through quiet winter streets. Houses glowed with Christmas lights, warm yellows, deep reds, soft greens, each one a tiny universe of its own. A snowflake hit the windshield, then another, and another. The kind of gentle snowfall that feels like forgiveness. I watched it blur against the dark. Ethan reached over and took my hand, thumb brushing the back of it slowly. Not asking, just being.
After a while, he spoke, voice barely above a whisper. You did the right thing, even if it hurts. I nodded once, staring out the window. It does, I said. A small laugh slipped out, bitter at first, then soft. It hurts a lot more than I thought it would. Because you cared. Because you always care. I closed my eyes. People like me, the quiet children, the adaptable ones, the peacekeepers, we don't stop loving easily. Even when we're mistreated, even when we're erased, even when we're told without words that we can be replaced. But caring doesn't mean staying. Caring doesn't mean accepting scraps. Caring doesn't mean shrinking to fit a family portrait that never had room for you. Ethan squeezed my hand. You're not alone. And that mattered more than anything that had happened in that house. The next morning, sunlight poured in through the living room windows, warming the blankets that had swallowed me the night before. Ethan's parents had invited us for breakfast, but Ethan let me sleep until I woke naturally. Something my own family had never once done during holidays. No knocking, no scolding, no everyone's waiting on you. Just quiet. A warm, honest quiet. I stretched slowly, my body heavy with emotional hangover. My eyes stung, but not in a painful way. More like something had been washed out, leaving room for air. When I stepped into the kitchen, Ethan was already there, making coffee. He smiled when he saw me, small, warm, and real. Morning, he said. Morning, I whispered back. He handed me a mug, fingers brushing mine. Drink first, life later. I smiled, genuinely, without effort. The coffee warmed me from the inside, loosening the tightness in my chest that had lived there since childhood. For the first time in a long time, the morning didn't feel like something I had to earn permission to enjoy. After breakfast, we drove to his parents' house. Helen met me at the door with a hug that didn't feel obligatory or rehearsed. A hug that lingered. A hug that said, "Stay as long as you need." She stepped back, holding my arms, eyes searching my face. You all right, sweetheart? I nodded. Not because everything was okay, but because she cared about the answer. Robert was in the kitchen flipping pancakes, waving a spatula like a greeting. Hey, kiddo, we saved you the good ones. And that was it. No interrogation, no sympathy show, no crying, just warmth. Warmth I didn't have to compete for. Warmth that didn't cost me parts of myself. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed. Dad. Again. The third time that day. For years, my father had been the quiet figure in the background. Never cruel, never loud, but never intervening either. A quiet observer. A man who floated between peace and denial, hoping the absence of conflict would count as love. I let it ring the first time, and the second, but the third time, I picked up. Cat? His voice was rough, like he'd been crying. I wanted to hear your voice. I didn't speak. I wasn't ready yet. He swallowed audibly. I found one of your invitations in the garage, in a box, under old Christmas decorations. My breath caught. A painful confirmation of everything I already knew. He let out a shaky exhale. I'm so sorry. I should have checked. I should have... So many things. We sat in silence. Not a cold silence. A learning silence. He continued.
I can't fix the past. I can't fix yesterday, but I'm here now, and I want to try, if you'll let me. I didn't forgive him. Not instantly, not magically, but I let him try. Not for him, but for me. Because some relationships aren't meant to be burned down. They just need different boundaries, different doors, different windows to let light in. I ended the call with a quiet, "Thank you for calling." That was enough for now. The email from Lily, a different kind of apology. A week later, I woke to a long email from Lily. No excuses this time, no defensiveness, no performance. Just raw sentences. Messy, uneven, painfully human. She said she started seeing a therapist. She said she understood now, more than she ever had before, how her insecurity had shaped her choices. She said she resented me for how easily I seemed to move through life, not realizing the ease she saw was actually silence. Silence I learned as survival. She said she was sorry, more than once, in ways that sounded like she meant it. I read it, every line, and then I closed it. Not out of anger, not out of punishment, out of peace. Some apologies don't need a reply to be real. Some doors don't need to be slammed or reopened. They can simply stay where they are, neither locked nor used. I didn't delete the email. I didn't answer it either. I let it exist. Like a bruise, like a lesson, like a story I no longer needed to fight. My mother's silence. The answer I didn't expect. My mother never called. Not after that night. Not after the truth. Not after the cracks in her perfect portrait finally showed. And for the first time in my life, her silence didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like the truth. She wasn't ready to face what she'd ignored. She wasn't ready to confront what she'd allowed. She wasn't ready to hold the daughter she'd overlooked. And that was okay. Healing doesn't require everyone to come with you. Some people stay where they are, in the stories they built, in the roles they understand, in the versions of you they're comfortable with. I didn't wish her harm. I didn't wish her sorrow. I just wished her honesty. And that was something only she could choose.
The present moment, choosing a different family. That night, Ethan and I hosted our own small Christmas dinner in our apartment. Just us. Warm lights, 2 plates, a candle flickering between us. Not fancy, not curated, just real. Halfway through dinner, I looked around the room. The plants I nurtured, the books piled high, the photos of places that mattered. And it hit me. I always had a family. I just hadn't realized it early enough. Family wasn't the house I was born into. Family wasn't the people who raised me. Family wasn't holiday photos or curated dinners or rehearsed moments. Family was someone who listened, someone who stayed, someone who made space, someone who didn't need me to shrink to feel big. Family was Ethan, his parents, my friends, people who chose me without needing me to earn it. People who saw me, truly saw me.
The final payoff. Closure, not revenge. As midnight approached, snow began to fall again, soft flakes drifting past the window like tiny white truths. Ethan took my hand across the table, squeezing gently. "You okay?" he asked. I thought about everything: the confrontation, the truth, the signatures, the tears, the door closing behind me. I thought about the years I spent waiting to be chosen by people who only knew one kind of love, conditional. I thought about the peace I felt now, and I nodded. Yeah, I said softly. I'm finally okay. He smiled, the kind of smile someone gives when they've been hoping to hear that for a long time. I leaned back, watching the snow fall beyond the glass, and whispered the truth I'd carried my whole life without knowing how to say. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up. It's who listens. It's who stays. A long breath slipped out of me, the last piece of weight I'd been holding for years. And sometimes, I added, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the people who never learned how to hold you. The snow kept falling, the world kept turning, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone else to make room for me. I had already made room for myself.